I thought leadership meant making decisions. Instead, I was asked to make them look pretty. Across schools, workplaces, and organizations, women are often present in leadership spaces, yet excluded from leadership power. We're invited to execute, support, and polish decisions that sometimes we didn't even help make. And that's not a confidence issue, it's a structural one. Because a lot of the times we talk about this glass ceiling as if it's something that just suddenly appears in adulthood, or that we really only see it in corporate offices and boardrooms. But the reality is that it starts much earlier. It starts in classrooms, where girls raise their hands and they get ignored. Or in group projects, where boys are told to lead and girls are asked to organize. And so you don't notice it all at once, because it is quiet, invisible, and easy to excuse. And by the time that you realize that it is there, you've already learned how to work around it instead of through it. I was elected to be president for my school's business club, and I was incredibly excited as someone who wants to go into business, but also be part of something that's meant to empower people. But on this officer team, I was the only girl. And unfortunately, that meant that meetings were being planned without me, agendas were drafted before I even knew that they existed, and when everything was said and done, I get a text telling me what had been decided. And then, of course, came the request, "Hey, Sonia, can you make sure that the slides look nice and professional?" And at first I said yes, not because I wanted to be sidelined. I didn't know that was happening at this point, but because I assumed that there must be a reason. Maybe I wasn't experienced enough. Maybe leadership was something that had to be earned, or maybe this is just how things worked. Because when exclusion is this subtle, it doesn't feel like discrimination. It feels like doubt. And doubt has a way of keeping you quiet. And then came the moment that I realized that this was a problem. It happened in a group chat. We were planning our 4th, our 5th, our 6th meeting, and time again, I wasn't being included. So I reached out to see how our next meeting would go, and I got a text that said, "Hey, Sonia, don't even worry about it. We're going to handle it ourselves. It's just easier." Easier. Just easier. And that word had hit me harder than anything else ever had because it was the truth. It was easier to exclude me than to include me. And at first, I didn't even feel angry. I felt unsure. I questioned myself more than the situation. And yet I knew I had to speak up because I was standing at crossroads. I could continue to be silent and be pushed away from something that I deeply cared about, and I also knew I would start to slowly disengage. Not because I lacked ambition, but because I was being trained to believe that my role was smaller than my ability. But at the same time, speaking up is scary. Was I being dramatic, overreacting, or just asking for too much? But too often, the system relies on our silence to keep working the way that it does. So I said, "Hey guys, by the way, I didn't apply as a graphic designer. I want to be part of real decision-making and planning." And as soon as I did that, something shifted. There I was, planning those meetings, drafting those agendas, and finally I was given the opportunity to lead. And for a moment, it felt like progress. And then came our biggest event of the year. And just as quickly, I was right back to where I started. Not because I wasn't capable, but because it was easier to exclude me. And it was then that I realized that this isn't a misunderstanding. It's a pattern. A study done by the American Association of University Women found that by middle school, girls are already less likely than boys to view themselves in leadership positions. Another study, published by the Journal of Adolescent Research, found that girls are more likely to be assigned organizational or supportive roles in group settings, while boys are told to take on more leadership and disruptive roles. And so this teaches girls something long before they even enter the workforce. Be helpful, but not authoritative. Be prepared, but not outspoken. And be involved, but certainly not in charge. And so when exclusion happens later, it feels familiar. And for me, this wasn't just about one club. I want to go into business and finance and economics, fields that are still overwhelmingly male-dominated. So I had to ask myself, if this is happening in student leadership spaces meant to empower people, then what happens in the real world? Because my experience isn't unique. According to Forbes, globally, only 30.6% of women hold leadership roles, despite making up almost half of the global workforce, a clear representation gap. Only 29% of C-suite positions are occupied by women. And at the very top, globally, only 6% of CEOs are women. Women are also more likely to be kept from high visibility projects the exact moment when leadership power accumulates. And if we look even closer, this gap widens when we consider race alongside gender. Women of color are significantly underrepresented. Black women, Latina women, Asian women, Indigenous women make up a significant part of our workforce, yet are still pushed to the side. For the top Fortune 500 companies, women are significantly underrepresented, and these disparities aren't random. They reflect systemic barriers that have accumulated over time. But this isn't just a corporate problem. It's a human problem, which means that humans can fix it starting today. So here are some things that you can do right now by yourself. Well, first of all, name it when it happens. If you see that a woman is being left out of a decision being made, don't let it slide. Ask, wait, why wasn't she included? Because that simple question disrupts the pattern. Invite women into the decision. Don't just ask us to help. Ask us to plan and decide and lead. And amplify women's ideas. If you hear a woman say something incredible and it gets ignored, acknowledge it. Even something as simple as, hey, Sonia said that and I think it's a great idea. And finally, for all the women in the room, ask for mentorship and offer it yourself. If you're a student, go out there and find someone who will actually advocate for you, because we need to stand by each other and build each other up. So here's what I've learned. Leadership isn't about waiting for permission to speak. It's about being invited into the room where decisions are made and helping others get there too. I didn't stop wanting leadership when it became uncomfortable. I just stopped accepting roles that were smaller than my ability. And I realized that women don't just need more opportunities to support leadership, we need access to build it. That glass ceiling isn't broken by just one speech, but it is broken when we stop accepting silence as the cost of belonging. And so if you want to change the world, start by changing the room. Thank you.